Hello YouTube. I was nosying around Mumsnet and found this interesting question. So I did the only reasonable thing and shared it with you. Because a few days ago I came across the term financial infidelity. And I've never heard that term before. This term, I believe, relates to partnerships, so a business partner or a spouse. If the other partner is spending in secret or covering up spending, or if they are concealing debt, lying about income, or hiding accounts, this is termed financial infidelity. Now, the story we're about to look at doesn't concern financial infidelity per se, but the thread is quite divided. Let's just have a look. Am I being unreasonable to not pay? The experts at bride.com say that even the closest couples can find it difficult to talk about money, but it's important because money is the number one cause of relationship stress. Studies show that couples fight more about money than sex. The experts suggest that you should discuss your goals with your partner, even though it isn't fun. You could kind of suggest things like saving for the sake of saving is no fun, but if there are goals attached to saving, then it might be more of an incentive to the partner who doesn't like to save. Maybe role playing by putting them in your position, how would you feel if, etc. Or maybe involve a third party if your partner isn't respectful of your opinions. Then it might be beneficial to involve a third party, and I think that's what the original post is about here. Pretty writes, me and husband have separate finances. I went through a really horrible time in a previous relationship financially. I won't go into all the details here, but I can't bear the thought of my finances being tied to somebody else ever again, or not having access to the money when I need it. I'm a saver, but my husband isn't. But we both contribute equally to the household, so I don't concern myself with it in the main. After the last 2 years with COVID, I wanted to treat my son to a holiday this summer. He'd be just 4 by the time it comes around, so not in school yet. I found something relatively cheap and have been speaking to my husband about it. Here's the am I being unreasonable part. My husband has a child from a previous relationship who is my stepchild and obviously my son's half-sibling. My husband basically wants to go on the summer holidays all together, but the only way to afford this is for me to use the savings I have accumulated to do so. It wouldn't wipe them out, but it would be a big chunk of it, more than I'm comfortable with. Husband would be able to contribute some, but not all of the additional cost. Adding 2 more people and going in the summer holidays makes the holiday triple the price, and admittedly, it's a different dynamic than I'd hoped for. Husband's argument is that we are a family, and it shouldn't matter to me if I have to spend some of my money on his older son. And yes, it's Disneyland Paris. And here come the responses. I'll get flamed for this, but if you have children with a man who already has kids, you should accept that you all become a family and you should take the sibling. OP replies, and admittedly, whilst the money isn't the main issue, I would love to go, just my son and I. Another opinion is absolutely no way should he be expecting for you to pay for his child when your finances are separate. If he wants to go away, then he should pay for his child and half of your child, really. P replies, I think what grates the most is this though. Husband doesn't want to save his money, that's fine, but then he wants the benefits of having savings through me. Not okay in my opinion. Freedom Faith adds, the stepchild should definitely go. However, that does not mean that you pay for them. That's for his parents to do. His dad, your partner, is going to have to find a different way to pay for it. I'd suggest a credit card or loan. Then he'll perhaps see that saving actually is better than paying extra because he's too lazy. And Goodnight Grandma suggests go with your son. You've already said that you have separate finances, so why change that now because it's in his favour? Girl Mum 21 adds, I think you need to re-evaluate your savings and have a shared savings pot, even if nothing else is shared. Do you have an equal amount of money you could save? I think it's a savage place to only take one of the children. It's the kind of place you should take them all to. And I agree that the stepchild is family. Tell your husband that he needs to find X amount for spends. OP replies with, he's a spender, not a saver. It would only be me saving in a joint pot. I'd rather not be the only one saving, but it still would be seen as joint. Been there and it ended horribly. Girl Mum replies, what I'm saying is, he'd need to contribute an equal amount, and if he doesn't get to come on holidays, etc. Suggest he sends you a set amount each month to save, if that would work better. It'd mean he can't spend it, and you don't need to worry about someone else having any control over your finances. That might be a good solution here. Girl Mum replies, what I'm saying is, he'd need to contribute an equal amount, and if he doesn't get to come on holidays, etc. Suggest he sends you a set amount each month to save, if that would work better. It'd mean he can't spend it, and you don't need to worry about someone else having any control over your finances. That might be a good solution here. London Mummy adds, I think it's fine for just you and your son to go. If your husband goes too, then his son has to come. Could you defer it until later in the year to give him an opportunity to save? Basically say, I'm going to book to go on the 30th of June. If you have saved enough for you and your son by then I'll book for the four of us, provided you have transferred the funds into my account by then. If not, then I'll just book for me and my son to go. If he kicks up a fuss at that point, just tell him that it obviously wasn't important enough for him to save for. I'm going to go against the grain here. Your stepson has two parents, and neither seem to be stepping up and offering to pay for this trip. If your husband wants his other child on this trip, he pays. You're covering the expenses of yourself and your son, and perhaps your husband. I wouldn't be paying for the stepson on this occasion, perhaps in the future, but not on this holiday. Melback and Toast asks, look at it this way. If your husband left you and had more children with someone else, how would you feel if those children went on an amazing holiday, but your son was left out? And OP replies, how would I feel if a woman unrelated to me took her own child on holiday without my ex? Probably how I feel when my stepson goes away with his mother, like it was nothing to do with me. Wouldn't you at least take your husband, your child's father? My husband wouldn't come without stepson, which I understand. The idea was to be a treat for my son before he starts school, and not in the school holidays, so it was cheaper. And yes, I'd love for it to be my son's treat. You just want to take your son? What's that all about? What's the shock? I get what you mean about the money, but I think it's a bit sad you didn't want your husband to go on this holiday with you originally. OP replies, I think it's just a different setup to others. I've always been a bit of a traveller, and I've taken my son away with me on my own before, with family or with friends, etc., whilst husband has been working. He's not bothered about it himself, he just likes the idea of our stepson being able to go to Disney. If I was talking about going to Cornwall with friends for a week, I don't think he'd be bothered. You say that he's a spender. Do you and your son benefit from his spending, or is it all prioritised towards him and his son? If his spending is benefiting everyone, then there is an argument that you chipping in towards everyone going would be reasonable. But if his spending is for him and his son only, then I'd tell him to start saving. And OP replies, well, obviously, he sometimes spends his money on our son. But then he's his son, so I'm not going to feel grateful for that. I spend money on our son as well. We each pay bills, etc., and then have the rest as spending money for ourselves. We actually both work in a family company, so we have the same salary. He chooses to spend his leftover money on all sorts of stuff, typically for himself in the main, and then the stepson or our son. And I choose to mix, spend some on me, spend some on son, and save some. I think Disneyland is an emotive one, especially with young kids. There is no way your stepchild will forgive you all going away to Disneyland without them. If you have the money, then it is a bit rubbish not inviting him. We wouldn't all be going away. The plan was me and my son alone. Husband knew I was planning something and was fine with it, as he's been in the past when I've been alone away with friends or family. It's only because then I looked at Disney that he now wants to come, so stepson can go too. Going against the grain here, stepchild aside, I'd be quite upset if my husband announced that he planned to go on holiday with our child, but without me because I hadn't saved enough money. No P replies, I've been away without him every year since our son was born. I appreciate that you might not like this in your marriage, but it's never been a problem in ours. He's just not a big holiday person. It's a shame you don't want to go as a family. I guess it's because I've always done it and have a lovely time with just me and my son. I don't want the dynamic of changing and being super busy and focusing around older stepson instead of my son, etc. I love getting away from regular life with my son sometimes. How old is the stepchild? He's 10. Different opinion here, but why don't you see if stepson's mum will pay for him and cover the cost of it being in school holidays and leave your darling husband at home? If she doesn't want to, you haven't done anything wrong by just you and your son going. What? Take the son and the stepson alone? Doesn't sound like a family. No, it doesn't sound like your family. I've been away loads with my son without my husband. It's not really possible to have completely separate finances if you're married. He's entitled to a share of your joint assets. I also think he can't take one of his children to Disneyland and not the other, although I understand why you'd want to. The solution would be for you to go alone with your son. That's exactly what I was planning to do from the start, go alone with my son. However, it sounds as though you really don't want your husband there regardless of your stepson. No, it's not actually that. I would be fine if husband came, but he wouldn't come without stepson, understandably. That would have to be in the school holidays, and that just changes the holiday completely, as well as the money issue being discussed. But yes, I do enjoy the mother and son time too, so it doesn't bother me going without my husband. It sounds like an odd setup all round, to be honest. Regardless of what others think it seems to be in line with, what you do as a family anyway, separate finances and separate holidays, sounds a pretty miserable way to live though. Would it not be more appealing if it was always just you and your son? And OP replies, it's not miserable at all. I've never said we've never holidayed together. We have, including with stepson, before and after my son was born. I just like to go away for weekends, etc. Quite a bit, and have done it so many times without my husband. I've been with my parents, with my friends, alone, and I love it. And I love the time with my son. He's not a big holiday person, so it's what works for us. It's odd that you don't see yourself as a family unit with your husband and his child, though. Just leave him and be alone all the time with your son. Also, wouldn't need to worry about thinking about your stepson sounds like a win. OP replies, I don't want to be alone all of the time with my son, but I am surely allowed to enjoy some things alone with my son. Do you never enjoy alone time with your children one-on-one? How sad. And this is the last comment and response. You knew you had a bonus child when you met him, and I think it's a bit outrageous to take one child and not your other, to be honest. Dad can come or not, but that's your kid too. What the F? If I was bio mum, I'd give half plus money for extras or keep my kid away from you as much as possible. So I knew Dad and his missus weren't playing weird favourites. OP responds, just catching up, but this is a gem. So even if my husband couldn't come, you think I should take the stepson as well, and I should ask his mother to pay for it. You're living in a fantasy land. It might work for some, but I can just picture my stepson's mother's face if we suggested I take him on holiday without his dad and asked that she cough up for half. Well, the people of Mumsnet have spoken, and it looks like the results are a 75-25 split that she shouldn't pay for them. So I found that quite interesting. Well, if you made it this far and you're interested, there's a lovely website by dollarsprout.com that suggests that having separate bank accounts might be very beneficial for married couples, as it gives them the opportunity to learn from each other. It gives them greater freedom, equal contributions towards monthly expenses, less debt-related tension, and it builds trust. If you're interested in that, I'll leave the links below. Anyway, if you have anything to contribute to this discussion, please leave it in the comments below. But for now, it's me saying goodbye.